When a language rises from the grave. The astonishing story of Hebrew's revival. There are words that refuse to die. For nearly 2,000 years, Hebrew lived in silence, not on the lips of children, not in the laughter of markets, but in the quiet pages of prayer books and ancient texts. It was a language remembered, not spoken, a relic, a ghost, and yet against all expectation, it came back to life. How did a dead language rise again? And is the Hebrew spoken today the same as the one spoken by Jews 2,000 years ago? The answers are as dramatic as the story itself. A language that never fully died. To understand Hebrew's revival, we must first understand its death. Around the 2nd century AD, after the destruction of Jerusalem and the scattering of Jewish people, Hebrew gradually stopped being used as an everyday spoken language. People shifted to languages like Aramaic, Greek, or later Yiddish and Arabic. But Hebrew did not disappear completely. It survived in a different form, like a flame hidden under ashes. It remained the language of religious prayer, sacred texts like the Torah, scholarship, and literature. For centuries, Jews across different countries could not speak to each other in daily life, but they could write to each other in Hebrew. So Hebrew was not truly dead. It was dormant, sleeping, waiting. One man with an impossible dream. Every revival needs a spark. For Hebrew, that spark was a man named Eliezer Ben-Yehuda. In the late 19th century, while many Jewish communities spoke different languages, Ben-Yehuda believed something radical. A nation needs its own language to live. Inspired by the rise of modern nations in Europe, he asked a bold question. If countries like Greece and Italy could revive their national identity, why not the Jewish people and their language? So he did something no one had done before. He decided to speak Hebrew in everyday life, turning a dream into reality. Ben-Yehuda didn't just talk about change, he lived it. When he moved to Jerusalem in 1881, he made 3 revolutionary decisions. 1. Hebrew in the home. He raised his son to speak only Hebrew, making him the first native speaker in nearly 2,000 years. Imagine that, a child growing up in a language that had not been spoken for generations. To make this possible, Ben-Yehuda even banned other languages in his house. If visitors spoke Russian or another language, the child was sent away. This was not just parenting, it was an experiment in history. 2. Hebrew in the school. He understood something powerful. Languages survive through children. Schools began teaching all subjects, science, math, daily conversation, in Hebrew. At first, teachers struggled. They lacked words, textbooks, even basic expressions. But slowly, children began to speak fluently. And then something magical happened. Children brought Hebrew home. 3. Words, words, words. Ancient Hebrew had no word for bicycle, newspaper, or electricity. So Ben-Yehuda invented them. He created thousands of new words, often using ancient roots or borrowing ideas from related languages. What made this possible was the genius of Hebrew's structure itself. Most Hebrew words are built from a 3-letter root called a shoresh. From a single root, entire families of words can grow. KTV, the root. Katav, he wrote. Miktav, a letter. Kutovet, an address. Ben-Yehuda used this system like a toolkit. He took ancient roots and stretched them into modern life, turning old meanings into new inventions. Instead of borrowing foreign words, he grew new ones from ancient seeds. It was not just invention, it was linguistic engineering. The hidden battle, a language war. But the revival of Hebrew was not peaceful. It was in many ways a cultural battlefield. Many Jews still spoke Yiddish, the language of everyday life, the language of home and humor. Hebrew, by contrast, was sacred, distant, and unfamiliar. Some religious communities were deeply opposed. To them, Hebrew was Lashon HaKodesh, the holy tongue. Using it for ordinary conversation felt like lowering something divine. The conflict reached its peak in 1913 in what became known as the Language War. A new technical university planned to teach science in German. Supporters argued Hebrew was too poor for modern subjects. But students and teachers refused. They protested. They went on strike. They demanded Hebrew. Even activists in the streets enforced the movement, urging people, speak Hebrew. In the end, Hebrew won. This victory proved that Hebrew was not just for prayer, it could carry science, technology, and the modern world. A language for a nation. The revival of Hebrew was not just about language, it was about identity. Jewish immigrants arriving in Palestine spoke many different languages: Yiddish, Russian, Arabic, Ladino. They needed a common voice. Hebrew became that voice. It was already familiar through religion, so it naturally became a shared language, a bridge between cultures. But Hebrew did not return in a single pure form. It was shaped by many communities. Jews from Yemen, Iraq, and Morocco preserved deeper, older sounds, while European Jews introduced softer pronunciations and different rhythms. Ironically, the revived language often leaned toward European patterns, even though its roots were Middle Eastern. Today, modern Hebrew reflects this mixture. It is not unusual to hear a sentence that blends Hebrew with Arabic expressions and even English slang. It is not a single voice, it is a chorus. Is modern Hebrew the same as ancient Hebrew? This is where the story becomes even more fascinating. The answer is yes and no. Modern Hebrew is deeply rooted in ancient Hebrew. Its alphabet structure and many core words come directly from biblical forms. In that sense, it is unmistakably the same language at its foundation, but it is not identical. Over time, Hebrew expanded far beyond its ancient form. Biblical Hebrew contained roughly 8,000 unique words, while modern Hebrew now includes well over 100,000, reflecting the demands of modern life, science, and technology. It also absorbed influences from many languages, spoken by Jewish communities across centuries. The way the language operates has changed as well. Biblical Hebrew was primarily aspect-based, focusing on whether an action was completed or ongoing. Modern Hebrew, by contrast, uses a time-based system with clear past, present, and future tenses. Even sentence structure has shifted. Ancient Hebrew often placed the verb first, following a verb-subject-object pattern. Modern Hebrew usually follows a subject-first structure, subject-verb-object, much like English. The writing system, too, has evolved. Biblical Hebrew was originally written without vowels, with vowel markings added later by scholars. Modern Hebrew uses a standardized script along with modern punctuation, making it more accessible for everyday communication. Because of these changes, some linguists argue that modern Hebrew is a kind of hybrid language, ancient in its vocabulary, yet partly European in its structure. It is not simply revived, it is rebuilt. A living language still growing. And even today, the revival of Hebrew is not finished. Unlike many languages, Hebrew has an official guardian, the Academy of the Hebrew Language. This organization continues to create new words for modern life, technology, science, social media. Every new invention raises a question: should Hebrew borrow or invent? So the language continues to grow, carefully shaped by both tradition and modern needs. The revival, in truth, never ended. The only successful revival? Hebrew is often called the only truly successful revival of a dead language. Why? Because it achieved something extraordinary. Millions of native speakers, a fully functioning modern language, a central role in national identity. No other language has reached this scale of revival, but Hebrew is not alone in trying. Other languages rising again. Across the world, communities are fighting to bring their languages back. Maori, New Zealand. Once suppressed by English education laws, Maori nearly disappeared. But through language immersion schools, it is now growing again. Wampanoag, United States. This Native American language had no living speakers for over a century. Today, children are learning it again. Manx, Isle of Man. Declared extinct in the 20th century, Manx returned through recordings, education, and technology. These stories echo the same truth. A language is not just words, it is identity. A voice that refused to fade. The story of Hebrew is not just about language, it is about persistence. It is about a people who refuse to let their voice disappear, even after centuries of silence. It is about a man who believed that words could rebuild a nation. And it is about children, ordinary children, who spoke a language back into life. Today, millions speak Hebrew every day. They argue, laugh, write, dream, all in a language that once seemed lost forever. And even now, new words are still being created. New voices are still shaping it. A language that died, and then somehow chose to live again.
It's time to study new words in context. 1. Relic. Definition: an old object or idea from the past that is still kept or remembered. Example: the old book is a relic from his grandfather's time. 2. Aramaic. Definition: an ancient language that people in the Middle East spoke a long time ago. Example: some parts of old religious texts are written in Aramaic. 3. Yiddish. Definition: a language spoken by many Jewish people, especially in Europe, mixing German and Hebrew. Example: his grandparents spoke Yiddish at home when they were young. 4. Dormant. Definition: not active now, but able to become active again later. Example: the volcano is dormant, but it could erupt one day. 5. Ladino. Definition: a language spoken by some Jewish communities, based on Old Spanish. Example: her family still sings songs in Ladino. 6. Core. Definition: the most important or central part of something. Example: trust is at the core of a strong friendship. 7. Aspect-based. Definition: a way of showing if an action is finished or still happening. Example: in aspect-based systems, a verb shows if the action is complete or not. 8. Time-based. Definition: a way of showing when an action happens, such as past, present, or future. Example: English uses a time-based system to show when things happen. 9. Immersion. Definition: learning something by being fully surrounded by it. Example: language immersion helps students learn faster because they hear it all the time. 10. Wampanoag. Definition: a Native American language that was once not spoken but is now being learned again. Example: some children are now learning Wampanoag in school. 11. Manx. Definition: a language from the Isle of Man that stopped being spoken but is now coming back. Example: people are using apps to learn Manx today. 12. Persistence. Definition: the ability to keep trying even when something is difficult. Example: her persistence helped her finish the project.
Comprehension questions. 1. What happened to Hebrew around the 2nd century AD? Answer: it stopped being used as a daily spoken language. 2. In what way did Hebrew continue to exist after it stopped being spoken? Answer: it was still used in religion, prayer, and writing. 3. Who was Eliezer Ben-Yehuda? Answer: he was the main person who led the revival of Hebrew. 4. What was Ben-Yehuda's big idea about language? Answer: he believed a nation needs its own language. 5. How did Ben-Yehuda use Hebrew at home? Answer: he made his family speak only Hebrew. 6. Why were schools important in reviving Hebrew? Answer: because children learned and then used Hebrew in daily life. 7. Why did Ben-Yehuda create new Hebrew words? Answer: because ancient Hebrew did not have words for modern things. 8. What was the language war? Answer: a conflict about whether Hebrew or another language should be used in education. 9. Why did some people oppose using Hebrew in daily life? Answer: they believed Hebrew was too holy for everyday use. 10. Why did Hebrew win the language war? Answer: because people wanted it to be used in all parts of life, including science. 11. Why did immigrants need a common language? Answer: because they spoke many different languages. 12. Is modern Hebrew exactly the same as ancient Hebrew? Answer: no, it is similar but also different. 13. What influenced modern Hebrew besides ancient Hebrew? Answer: other languages like Yiddish, Russian, and Arabic. 14. What does the Academy of the Hebrew Language do? Answer: It creates new words and guides the language today. 15. Why is Hebrew considered a successful revival? Answer: because it became a widely spoken modern language again.